Hello, my friend. James Hands here from Awaken Therapy. So I've announced that I'm writing a book which will be published, hopefully, next year. And the working title is From Trauma Survivor to Soul Warrior. And I just wanted to define Soul Warrior, what that phrase means for me, to explore that, unpack that in some detail for you right now. So let's start with trauma survivor, because we know that one well, we know that clearly. People that I meet through my work have gone through traumas ranging from emotional neglect, isolation, as a child, through to severe abuse and everything in between. And so there's a range, if you like, degrees of trauma, but there's a depth to that. There's something I kept noticing over the 30 years of my practice, and that is this amazing strength in people who've been through a lot of life challenges, that somehow they've managed to get through, find the courage to keep going, and by the time they come to me, ready for that next phase of their healing journey, next level of their healing journey, then it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? To go through, great ordeals, great difficulties, but somehow drag yourself through, somehow to keep going, somehow to stay on the planet, which can be very hard to do, and a lot of people obviously don't. But to get through that, to persevere. And so what I've found is that when people get to a certain level of their healing, it's like they hit a psychological ceiling. If we only look at our healing in terms of our psychology, our humanness, our body, mind, if we're just looking at our PTSD or complex post-traumatic stress disorder and the anxieties and the addictions and the flashbacks and the triggering and the freezing and all the issues, if we're only looking at that from a more human psychological perspective, well, that's all real, that's all necessary, that's all the raw material of the healing. But there's a certain level where we hit this invisible ceiling in the healing process. It's like we can't go any further. It's like our human consciousness or our sense of self as a human just keeps us really stuck in a survivor mode. And essentially that's because we're judging it on a human level as like, well, this is obviously bad. This is obviously wrong. These are obviously things that should not have happened. And yeah, we can absolutely relate to that, of course, but there's a whole other dimension of self. You are not a human being having a spiritual experience, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. I think it was Wayne Dyer who said that originally. And so when people have that openness, have that awareness to whatever degree, it might be very early stages, or someone might have been exploring their spirituality for decades. I don't know where you are on that path there, but if you're watching this, you probably have some degree of openness to spirituality, to knowing your transcendent self, the transpersonal self, the real self, the greatest self, the Atman, the I am, the Buddha nature, the Christ self. Some awareness of you beyond the body-brain personality of the person, the human, the James Hands, or your name, who you are. And so this is the breakthrough we need to get really to the final level of our healing process. To really heal out trauma fully, we have to get to that level. Otherwise, we're still going to be stuck in that, this shouldn't have happened. I'm a survivor of trauma. Yep, I'm thriving now. I'm in a good space, but somehow it still shouldn't have happened. And so a soul warrior, long answer, a long roundabout way of getting to this definition. A soul warrior is someone who's taken on very significant challenges in life. I mean, just being here is challenging, so that there's no easy pass really. There's no free lunches here. But someone who's taken on significant challenges, often born into very challenging, dysfunctional family, all the trauma, stress, difficulties that go with that, but has some knowing of themselves as a person, as a being, that's more than that. And so in that space, the awareness of reasons for it start to appear. Well, why did that happen? What was that for? On a soul level, there are always reasons for these difficulties, these life challenges. What are the reasons? Well, we'll explore that in another video, but the sort of things like learning, growth, evolution, karma, service. There's a number of reasons, maybe half a dozen very powerful reasons why we would take stuff on. And you can see how that flips it. So for the soul warrior, the meaning of their trauma has flipped. You went through things not for no reason. You didn't go through things and that shouldn't have happened. It wasn't all a mistake. It wasn't all just some big disastrous error. It was actually purposeful. It was actually built into the pre-life planning. It was intended. It was chosen on a soul level. Oh, what the hell? You mean I chose that? Well, on a soul level, yes. Significant things are designed. And what the hell was that about? Why would I choose that? Well, then we look at the gifts, the reasons, what was developed, what's been learned, what's grown, what's come out of it. A soul warrior is someone who's really got to that stage of realizing what it was for, to some degree. They've gone through that ceiling, the lid is taken off, and there's that opening to the whole greater dimension, out of that little human bubble into the great dimension of spirit, of soul, and then it starts to become clear. There were reasons for this. And what are the gifts that I developed out of that? What came out of those challenges? What are the strengths? What are the resources? What's the wisdom, the empathy, the compassion, the patience, the courage, the strength, obviously. There's a long list. Rob Schwartz, has got a list of about 27, 28, what he calls divine virtues. The qualities that wouldn't come out of easy, that can only develop out of challenging situations. And so all of a sudden we've got to this level where the trauma, the abuse, the neglect, all these things start to make some sort of sense. And that allows us then to be finished with it completely, to let it go completely, let go of the remnant, wounding of it, the remnant story, the remnant identity around it all. And it starts to become, I'm a effing soul warrior. I took this on intentionally. And what have I developed out of that? Well, all these amazing strengths and gifts and resources, the gifts of trauma. And then what is just so powerful and amazing and humbling to see is how people express those gifts. So you might have gone through some really challenging stuff, but it wasn't a waste of time. It wasn't not meant to be. You've developed these resources. And depending on where you are on your healing journey, you might have got to the point where you know that there's qualities in you that wouldn't be there despite that. People get to a certain level of healing and they say, well, I actually wouldn't change that because I wouldn't want to not have these gifts that I've acquired and developed through all that hard work. No, I wouldn't actually change what happened. And then they express it. Then, how do you express these gifts? Maybe there was a lack of empathy, attunement, understanding, even being heard or seen as a child. Well, I wonder if you're a soul warrior, strong enough, connected enough that you've been able to catalyze that into empathy for others. You might work with children and just be incredibly attuned and compassionate with children. I've certainly met clients who are just extraordinary demonstrations of that beautiful level of empathy. They can just tune in so deeply. Well, that wouldn't be there. Those depths of capacity wouldn't be there if those depths hadn't been carved out by the challenges. So a soul warrior is someone who's at least opened the lid to their soul awareness. They're at least at the very start, at least, of their spiritual awareness. And in that space, they're consciously realizing, I'm not just a trauma survivor. I'm soul level, intentional, brave, mighty warrior that took on these things to transmute them into growth and then express them, to share these gifts, to make the world a better place as a result. This stage of healing, I call it the forgiveness stage because it's at that level that we can finally fully let go of our grievances at those who've hurt us. can finally let go of our grievances at God for, putting us into such a difficult life. There's the complete freedom and liberation that comes when we can finally reframe it in that sense. Oh, that's what it was for. So I hope that makes sense. I'm very excited to be writing this book. It's a big project, and I want it to be very good. And make sure you're on the mailing list and following to get the updates, the news. I'll need your help. I'll need some support to get the book out there. So I'll keep you posted about the progress there. Love to have you along for the journey. Thank you.